Clara Whitmore's hands shook as she set the plate down. Not from the cold, not from exhaustion. From the tiny wooden horse she'd found in her apron pocket, the one her son had carved the day before the fire took him. 4 years. 4 years of burying her grief in flour and bacon grease. 4 years of feeding 30 hungry cowboys while starving herself of everything that made life worth living. Then he walked in, a stranger with storm-gray eyes and blood on his shirt. And nothing would ever be the same. Stay until the end to see how 2 shattered souls found redemption in the Montana wilderness. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The kitchen door slammed open at 4:30 in the morning. Clara didn't flinch. After 4 years at Broken Arrow Ranch, she'd learned that Montana winters had no manners. The wind took what it wanted. Warmth dignity sometimes lives. She wiped her hands on her apron and crossed to secure the latch. That's when she saw him. A man, collapsed against the hitching post, snow covering his shoulders like a burial shroud. Clara's heart stopped, then started again harder. "Lord have mercy," she breathed. She grabbed her shawl and ran into the darkness, the cold hitting her face like a slap. The man wasn't moving. His horse stood nearby, head down, exhausted frost hanging from its muzzle. "Mr. Clara knelt beside him. "Mr. Can you hear me?" No response. She pulled back his collar and pressed her fingers to his neck. A pulse, weak, but there. "Don't you dare die on my doorstep," she muttered. "I've got enough ghosts already." Getting him inside nearly broke her back. He was tall, 6 feet, maybe more, and solid muscle, despite being half frozen. Clara dragged him through the kitchen door, leaving a trail of snow and something darker. Blood. She rolled him onto his back near the stove, and finally got a good look at his face. Sharp jaw, dark hair matted with ice, a small scar on his chin. His clothes were quality once, but road-worn now. His boots had seen 1,000 miles of hard riding. "Who are you?" Clara whispered. His eyes opened. Gray, like storm clouds, like gunsmoke. They focused on her with a sharpness that didn't match his broken body. "Where?" His voice cracked. "Broken Arrow Ranch, Montana territory." Clara pressed him back down when he tried to rise. "Stay still. You've lost blood." "How much?" "Enough that you shouldn't be conscious." She was already reaching for her medicine kit. "What happened to you?" He was quiet for a long moment. Too long. "Trouble," he finally said. "That ain't an answer." "It's the only one I got, ma'am." Clara's jaw tightened. She'd dealt with drifters before, men running from debts, from wives, from the law. They all had that same look, hunted, haunted, holding secrets like weapons. "I'm going to need to see the wound." He hesitated, then nodded. She unbuttoned his shirt with steady hands. The wound was on his left side, just below the ribs. A bullet grazed deep but clean. He'd been lucky, if you could call getting shot lucky. "This needs stitching." "Do it." "It'll hurt." Something flickered in those gray eyes, almost like amusement. "Ma'am, I've been riding 3 days with a hole in my side. Pain and I are old friends." Clara threaded her needle. "Bite down on this." She handed him a leather strap. "And for God's sake, don't scream. The hands start waking up at 5. He took the strap, his eyes never leaving her face. "You've done this before." "More times than I care to count." She poured whiskey over the wound. He hissed, but didn't cry out. "Hold still." The first stitch made his whole body go rigid. The second drew a grunt from deep in his chest. By the third, his breathing had steadied, controlled, deliberate. This man knew how to handle pain. "You're either very brave or very stupid," Clara said. "Been called both. Which is true? Depends on the day." She tied off the final stitch and sat back. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. When was the last time she'd been this close to a man? She couldn't remember. Didn't want to remember. "You'll live," she said. Barely. "I'm obliged to you, ma'am." "It's miss. And don't be obliged yet. You still owe me an explanation." She wiped her hands on a clean cloth. "Men don't ride 3 days through a blizzard with bullet holes unless they're running from something. Or someone." He sat up slowly, wincing. "Maybe I was running toward something." Toward what death? Freedom. The word hung between them. Clara knew that word, knew the weight of it, the ache of wanting something you couldn't have. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated again, just a heartbeat, but she caught it. "Jessie. Jessie Cade." A lie. She could taste it, but she'd told enough lies herself to recognize when pushing wouldn't help. "Clara Whitmore. I'm the cook here." She stood and moved to the stove. "You hungry, Mr. Cade?" "Starving." "Then sit at the table. I'll fix you something." She felt his eyes on her back as she worked, watching, analyzing. This man missed nothing. It should have unnerved her. Instead, it made her feel strangely visible, like she existed again after years of being a ghost in her own life. "How long you been here?" he asked. 4 years. "You like it?" Clara's hands stilled over the skillet. Such a simple question, such a complicated answer. "It's work," she said. "It pays." "That ain't what I asked." She turned to face him. "Does it matter?" "Just trying to understand." "Understand what? You." He held her gaze. A woman alone cooking for 30 men in the middle of nowhere. That takes a certain kind of strength, or a certain kind of desperation. The directness of it should have offended her. Instead, it cracked something open in her chest. "Maybe both," she admitted. He nodded as if that was the answer he expected. "I know something about both." Clara set a plate in front of him. Eggs, bacon, 3 biscuits still warm from yesterday's batch. He stared at it like she'd offered him gold. "When's the last time you ate real food?" He picked up a fork. 4 days, maybe 5. "Then eat slow. Your stomach won't thank you otherwise." He took a bite of biscuit and closed his eyes. Something crossed his face, grief maybe, or memory. When he opened his eyes again, they were wet. "My mother used to make biscuits like this," he said quietly. "Used to." "She's been gone a long time." Clara sat across from him, her own coffee cooling between her hands. "I'm sorry." "It was a long time ago." "That doesn't make it hurt less." He looked at her sharply. "You speak like someone who knows." "I lost people too." The words came out before she could stop them. She never talked about this. Never. 4 years of silence, and now she was spilling her grief to a stranger with bullet wounds and secrets. "I'm sorry," he said. And somehow, from him, it didn't sound hollow. They sat in silence as he finished eating. Outside, the darkness began to thin, the first gray hints of dawn, creeping across the sky. "The boss will be up soon," Clara said. "Marcus Thornton. He's a fair man. If you're looking for work, I am." "Then be honest with him." She met his eyes. "As honest as you can be, anyway." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or shame. "You know I lied, about my name." "I know you didn't tell me everything." Clara stood and gathered his empty plate. "I figure everyone's got a right to their secrets. Lord knows I've got mine." "You're a remarkable woman, Miss Whitmore." "I'm a cook, Mr. Cade. Nothing remarkable about that." "You saved my life. That's remarkable enough." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Just turned back to her stove and started preparing breakfast for 30 hungry men. The kitchen door opened again at 6 o'clock sharp. Marcus Thornton filled the doorway, 58 years old, built like an oak tree, with a face that had weathered more storms than most men could survive. His eyes found the stranger immediately. "Clara?" His voice was calm but alert. "We have a guest." He rode in before dawn, Mr. Thornton, half frozen and bleeding. I patched him up. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides. He stood over Jesse, studying him with eyes that missed nothing. You got a name, son? Jesse Cade, sir. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Something flickered their recognition. Suspicion Clara couldn't tell. That horse outside yours? Yes, sir. Good animal. Quarter horse, if I'm not mistaken. Texas breeding. Jesse's jaw tightened. You know your horses, Mr. Thornton. I ought to. Been raising them 40 years. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat. Clara, get me some coffee, would you? Mr. Cade and I need to talk. Clara poured the coffee, her ears straining to catch every word. This wasn't just idle conversation. Marcus was testing the stranger, probing for weaknesses, looking for truth. Where you from, son? Here and there, most recently Kansas. Before that, a pause. South. Texas. Jesse's hands tightened around his cup. You seem awful interested in my geography, Mr. Thornton. I'm interested in knowing who's under my roof. Marcus leaned forward. I've been running cattle in this territory for 20 years. I've seen every kind of man. There is good ones, bad ones, and ones just trying to survive. I can usually tell which is which within 5 minutes. And which am I? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Clara's blood run cold. You got your daddy's eyes, son. The kitchen went silent. Jesse didn't move, didn't breathe. His face had gone pale beneath the trail dust. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. I knew Harrison Hollister. Worked with him 30 years back before he built his empire in Texas. Before I came north. He paused. You look just like him. Clara's heart hammered. Hollister. The name meant nothing to her, but it clearly meant everything to Jesse. His whole body had gone rigid like a man facing a firing squad. That man's dead, Jesse said flatly. I know. I heard what happened to the family. Marcus shook his head. Terrible business. Harrison, his wife, his eldest son all killed, and the youngest boy wanted for the murder. He didn't do it. The words burst out of Jesse like a gunshot. His hands were shaking now, his carefully constructed calm shattered. I know he didn't, Marcus said quietly. Jesse looked up, shock breaking through his mask. How could you possibly know that? Because I knew Harrison Hollister, and I know his blood. Marcus reached across the table and gripped Jesse's arm. A Hollister might be many things, stubborn, proud, reckless, but they don't murder their own kin. Never have, never will. Clara watched this exchange with her heart in her throat. She didn't understand half of what they were saying, but she understood the emotion, the raw, painful hope breaking across Jesse's face. You believe me, Jesse whispered. I believe what I see. And I see Harrison's boy running for his life, trying to survive in a world that's branded him a killer. Marcus released his arm. You're safe here, son. Whatever name you're using, whatever you're running from, you're safe on my land. Jesse's composure cracked. He bent forward, pressing his hands to his face, and for a moment, Clara thought he might weep. But he pulled himself together, straightening his shoulders with visible effort. I've been running for 7 years. He said hoarsely. 7 years of looking over my shoulder, 7 years of expecting every lawman to put a bullet in my back. Then maybe it's time to stop running. It's not that simple. Silas Crawford, the man who killed my family, he's still out there, still looking for me. And he's got the law on his side. Marcus nodded slowly. Crawford. I've heard that name. Cattle baron down in Texas. Rich as Midas and mean as a rattlesnake. He killed my parents, killed my brother, framed me for all of it. Jesse's voice had gone hard. And someday, somehow, I'm going to prove it. Maybe you will, but not today. Marcus stood. Today you rest. Tomorrow, if you're able, you work. I need men who know cattle and horses. From what I can see, you qualify. You'd hire me. Knowing who I am, what they say I did. I'm hiring Jesse Cade, a drifter looking for honest work. Marcus moved toward the door. Whatever else you might be is your own business, unless you bring trouble to my door. And if Crawford finds me here, Marcus paused, his hand on the doorframe. Then we'll deal with it together. That's what we do at Broken Arrow. We stand by our own. He glanced back. Get some rest, son. Clara will show you where you can sleep. The bunkhouse is cold, but it's warm enough. He left and the kitchen fell silent. Clara realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, watching Jesse. He hadn't moved from his chair, but something in him had shifted. The tension that had coiled through him since he'd arrived was loosening just slightly. He means it, she said. Marcus doesn't say things he doesn't mean. Jesse looked at her. You heard all that. I did. And you're not afraid of what a man wrongly accused of a crime he didn't commit? Clara shook her head. I've known real monsters, Mr. Hollister, or Cade, or whatever you call yourself. They don't ride 3 days through a blizzard and thank a woman for stitching them up. Jesse, he said quietly. Call me Jesse. It's my real name, at least. All right, Jesse. She crossed her arms. You should rest. The hands will be here for breakfast soon, and I can't have a bleeding stranger scaring my customers. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You have customers. 30 of them. Every morning, every lunch, every dinner. She grabbed a stack of plates. They're loud, they're messy, and half of them have the table manners of barn animals. But they're mine to feed. You care about them. They're the closest thing I have to family. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Again. What was it about this man that made her say things she'd kept buried for years? Jesse was watching her with those storm gray eyes. What happened to your real family? Clara went still. That's not... I told you my story. Or at least part of it. He stood wincing at the pain in his side, but refusing to show weakness. Seems only fair you tell me yours. It's not the same. Isn't it? He took a step closer, not threatening, just present. We're both running, Clara, both carrying weight that's too heavy to bear alone. I can see it in your eyes. Her throat tightened. You don't know me. I'd like to. 4 words. Simple, direct, and somehow more terrifying than anything she'd faced in 4 years. There's a cot in the storage room, she said, her voice rougher than she intended. Back through that door. You can rest there until you're strong enough for the bunkhouse. Jesse studied her for a moment longer. Then he nodded, accepting her retreat. Thank you, Clara, for saving my life. I told you. Not just the stitching. He paused at the storage room door. For treating me like a man instead of a monster. That's rarer than you know. He disappeared into the back room and Clara stood alone in her kitchen, her hands trembling around the coffee pot. Who was this man? What was he doing to her carefully constructed walls? The door banged open again, the hands arriving for breakfast, and Clara snapped back into motion. Eggs to scramble, bacon to fry, 30 hungry men to feed. But for the first time in 4 years, she found herself thinking about something other than the next meal. She found herself thinking about storm gray eyes and a voice that promised understanding. And that terrified her most of all. The hands ate with their usual chaos, loud conversation, clattering forks, demands for more coffee and more biscuits. Clara moved among them with practiced efficiency, but her mind kept drifting to the man sleeping in her storage room. You all right, Miss Clara? Young Billy McCraw asked, his 17-year-old face full of concern. You seem distracted. I'm fine, Billy. Finish your breakfast. Is it true a stranger came in this morning? Pete said he saw a horse at the hitching post that wasn't ours. There's a new hand resting up. He'll likely start work tomorrow. The table went quiet. 30 pairs of eyes fixed on her. New hand. Tom Mueller, the senior wrangler, frowned. In the middle of winter, that's unusual. Mr. Thornton hired him, that's all I know. Where's he from? I didn't ask. What's his name? Jesse Cade. Tom's frown deepened. Never heard of him. Maybe that's a good thing, Clara said sharply. Maybe it means he's just a man looking for work like the rest of you. The table fell silent. Clara realized she'd been too fierce, too protective. She never defended strangers, never took sides. More coffee, she said, changing the subject. And someone better eat those last biscuits, or I'm giving them to the hogs. After breakfast, the hands filed out to start the day's work. Clara cleaned up alone as always, but she found herself listening for sounds from the storage room. Once, she thought she heard movement. Once, a muffled groan. But she didn't go to check. The man needed rest more than he needed her hovering. It was nearly noon when Jesse emerged. He looked better, still pale, still favoring his left side, but his eyes were clearer and his movements more certain. How do you feel? Clara asked. Human again. He settled into a chair at the table. Mostly. Hungry. Always. She fixed him a plate from the lunch she'd prepared. Cold cuts, bread pickles from the cellar. Simple food, but his eyes lit up like she'd offered him a feast. You're a miracle worker, Clara Whitmore. I'm a cook. Same thing to a starving man. They ate in comfortable silence. Or rather, he ate, while Clara pretended to eat, watching him over the rim of her coffee cup. Can I ask you something? She said finally. You can ask, might not answer. Fair enough. She set down her cup. What really happened to your family? You said this Crawford killed them, but why? What would make a man murder an entire family? Jesse stopped eating. His jaw worked, muscles clenching beneath the stubble. Land, he said finally. Greed. Hate. He pushed his plate away. My father owned 50,000 acres in Texas. Prime cattle country. Crawford wanted it bad enough to kill for it. But killing your family wouldn't give him the land. No, that took lying. Jesse's voice had gone hard bitter. Crawford had witnesses, paid witnesses, who said they saw me kill my parents. Said I did it for the inheritance. The law believed them. But you didn't. No. He met her eyes. I was in town buying medicine for my mother. She'd been sick for weeks. When I got back... He stopped, swallowed hard. They were dead. All of them. And Crawford's men were waiting for me with a story already prepared. Clara's heart ached. She knew that kind of loss. The sudden, brutal kind that left you staggering, unable to believe the world had changed so completely in the time it took to run an errand. I ran, Jesse continued. I shouldn't have it made me look guilty, but I was 25 years old, and I'd just walked into a nightmare. I panicked. Anyone would have. Would they? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been asking myself that for 7 years. If I'd stayed, if I'd fought. You'd be dead, Clara said quietly. If Crawford was powerful enough to murder your family and frame you for it, he was powerful enough to make sure you never saw trial. Jesse stared at her. That's an unusually practical way of looking at it. I'm a practical woman. You're more than that. The words hung between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. I should check on the evening meal, Clara said, rising abruptly. The hands will be in before sunset. Clara. She stopped her back to him. I don't know why you're being kind to me, but I want you to know I'm not going to bring trouble to you. If Crawford's men find me here, I'll leave before they can hurt anyone else. She turned to face him. And go wherever's far enough to keep you safe. You don't even know me. Why would you care about keeping me safe? Jesse stood slowly, crossing to her. He moved carefully, still healing, but there was a gentleness in his approach that disarmed her. Because you saw me, he said quietly. You saw me bleeding on your doorstep, and you didn't call for help. You didn't run for a gun. You saved my life with your own 2 hands. That doesn't mean... And because when I told you the truth about who I am, you didn't flinch, didn't look at me like a criminal. He stopped just close enough to touch if she reached out. You looked at me like a man who needed help. Clara's throat was tight. Maybe I just have bad judgment. Or maybe you're the first person in 7 years to see me clearly. She should step back, should put distance between them, should remember all the reasons she'd spent 4 years building walls around her heart. Instead, she stood her ground. I lost my husband and son 4 years ago, she heard herself say. A fire. I was at the schoolhouse teaching when it happened. They died trying to save each other. The words came out flat, emotionless, the only way she could say them. I'm sorry, Jessie said. And like before, it didn't sound hollow. I blamed myself. Still do sometimes. I should have been home, should have been there. But you weren't. No, I was doing my job, teaching children their letters while my boy... Her voice cracked. She stopped, breathed. While my Benjamin burned alive. Jessie said nothing. He just stood there, solid and present, bearing witness to her grief. I came west to disappear, Clara continued. To work myself to death so I wouldn't have to feel anymore. And it was working. 4 years of cooking, cleaning, existing without really living. She looked up at him. Then you appeared on my doorstep. And ruined everything. And reminded me I was still alive. The admission surprised them both. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. She'd said too much, revealed too much. I should... Wait. Jessie's hand caught hers. His palm was calloused and warm. You're not the only one who's been reminded. Their eyes held. Something passed between them, recognition, understanding the fragile beginning of something neither had expected. I'm not looking for anything, Clara said quietly. Neither am I. I don't know how to trust anymore. Neither do I. So, what is this? Jessie's thumb brushed across her knuckles. A small gesture, but it sent warmth flooding through her. This is 2 broken people standing in the same kitchen, he said. That's all, for now. For now. The words hung between them, full of possibility. The kitchen door opened, and they sprang apart. Marcus Thornton stood in the doorway, his weathered face unreadable. Jessie, feeling better? Yes, sir, much better. Good. Marcus glanced between them, missing nothing. I need you to come with me. There's something you should see. What is it? Doc Whitfield's here. Rode in from Billings this morning. Marcus's eyes were steady. Says he has documents that might interest a man named Hollister. Clara's breath caught. Jessie went absolutely still. What kind of documents? The kind that might clear your name. Marcus held the door open. If you're ready to stop running, son, now's your chance. Jessie looked at Clara. In his eyes, she saw hope warring with fear, the desperate wish for freedom battling 7 years of learned caution. Go, she said softly. I'll be here when you get back. He held her gaze for a moment longer. Then he followed Marcus out into the Montana cold. Clara stood alone in her kitchen, her heart pounding. Whatever happened next, nothing would be the same. And for the first time in 4 years, that thought didn't terrify her. It gave her hope. The doc's hands trembled as he spread the papers across Marcus's desk. Jessie stood frozen, afraid to breathe, afraid to hope. I kept everything, Doc Whitfield said. His voice cracked with age and emotion. Your father gave me these the week before he died, said if anything ever happened to him I should hold on to them. Jessie's throat tightened. He knew. He knew Crawford was coming. He suspected. The doc pushed his spectacles up his nose. Harrison was no fool. He'd been receiving threats for months, anonymous letters, dead cattle, fences cut in the night. Marcus leaned forward. What are these documents, Henry? Land deeds, original surveys, and most importantly? The doc pulled out a yellowed envelope. Letters, from Crawford to Harrison. Threatening letters, demanding he sell the land or face consequences. Jesse's hands shook as he reached for the envelope. The handwriting was familiar. He'd seen it on wanted posters with his own face. "This proves Crawford had motive," he said hoarsely. "It proves more than that." Doc Whitfield pulled out another paper. "This is a sworn statement from Crawford's former foreman, man named Peters. He came to me 6 months ago dying of consumption, wanted to clear his conscience before meeting his maker." Jesse's heart stopped. What did he say? That he was there the night your family died, that Crawford ordered the killings, that you were never within 10 miles of the ranch when it happened. The room went silent. Jesse felt his knees buckle. He grabbed the desk for support, his vision blurring. 7 years, he whispered. 7 years I've been running, and you had this the whole time. I didn't know where you were, son. The doc's eyes filled with tears. I searched. God knows I searched. But you disappeared so completely I thought maybe Crawford had found you. Thought maybe you were dead. I might as well have been. Marcus's hand gripped Jesse's shoulder. But you're not. You're here. And now we have proof. Proof that won't mean anything if Crawford gets to me first. Jesse straightened, forcing steel into his spine. He's got money, power, half the lawmen in Texas in his pocket. But not all of them. Doc Whitfield gathered the papers carefully. There's a federal marshal in Helena, man named Douglas. He's been investigating Crawford for years. Cattle fraud, land theft, witness tampering. He just never had enough evidence. And now? Now he might. The doc met Jesse's eyes. If you're willing to testify. If you're willing to stop running and fight. Jesse looked at Marcus, at the doc, at the papers that represented 7 years of stolen life. I'm willing, he said quietly, but I need time. Time to heal. Time to figure out how to do this without getting everyone here killed. You've got time, Marcus said. Winter's setting in. Nobody's going anywhere for the next few months. Crawford doesn't know you're here. Yet. Yet. Marcus nodded grimly. So we stay alert. We watch the roads, and we prepare. Jesse turned toward the window. Through the frost-covered glass he could see the cookhouse, could see the warm light spilling from its windows, could see Clara moving past her silhouette, graceful and strong. There are people here I don't want to see hurt, he said quietly. Marcus followed his gaze. A small smile crossed his weathered face. Then we make sure they're not. The days that followed settled into a rhythm Jesse hadn't known in years. He healed faster than expected. Clara's stitching was as good as any doctor's, and by the end of the week, he was working alongside the other hands. The men were wary at first, a stranger in their midst appearing from nowhere in the dead of winter. But Jesse knew how to work, knew cattle and horses better than most men knew their own names. And slowly, grudgingly, the hands began to accept him. You're good with that rope, Tom Mueller admitted one afternoon. They were sorting cattle in the holding pen, breath fogging in the bitter cold. Where'd you learn Texas? Jesse threw another loop clean and precise. Started working cattle before I could walk. Texas, huh? Tom's eyes narrowed. Lot of trouble down in Texas these days. Trouble everywhere if you're looking for it. Tom studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded, some decision made. Fair enough. Just mind you don't bring any trouble here. That's the last thing I want. Young Billy McCraw attached himself to Jesse like a shadow. The boy was eager, reckless, and desperate to prove himself, a combination Jesse remembered all too well from his own youth. Teach me that rope trick, Billy begged after watching Jesse lasso a runaway calf. The one where you throw from the saddle. It's not a trick. It's practice. Then let me practice. Jesse looked at the boy's earnest face, 17 years old, full of fire and foolishness, reminded him painfully of his brother at that age. All right, he said. But you listen to every word I say. No showing off. No taking risks. Understand? Yes, sir. And don't call me sir. Makes me feel old. Billy grinned. Yes, Jesse. They practiced for an hour every day after the regular work was done. Jesse was patient, correcting Billy's grip, adjusting his stance, teaching him to read the movement of cattle before they made it. "You're a natural," Jesse told him after Billy finally made a clean throw. "Just need to slow down, think before you act." "That's what my ma always says." "Your ma sounds like a smart woman." "She is." Billy coiled his rope carefully. "She sent me here to learn to be a man. Said the ranch would teach me things she couldn't." "What things?" "How to work hard, how to take responsibility." Billy's young face grew serious. "How to be someone worth respecting." Jesse felt something twist in his chest. "You're already someone worth respecting, Billy. Just need to believe it yourself." The boy ducked his head, embarrassed, but pleased. "You really think so?" "I know so." From across the yard, Clara watched them. She'd been watching Jesse all week, telling herself it was just curiosity, just concern for a wounded man she'd helped. But it was more than that, and she knew it. She watched him work with Billy, patient and kind. Watched him help the older hands with tasks too heavy for aging backs. Watched him treat the horses with a gentleness that spoke of deep respect for the animals. This was not a murderer, not a monster. This was a good man caught in impossible circumstances. And God help her, she was falling for him. "You're staring again." Clara jumped. Sarah McCraw stood beside her, a knowing smile on her weathered face. "I'm not staring." "Honey, you've been staring at that man for 3 days straight." Sarah nudged her with an elbow. "Not that I blame you. He's easy on the eyes." "Sarah. And he stares right back, you know, when you're not looking." Sarah's smile softened. "It's nice to see, Clara. Nice to see you coming back to life." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Sarah took her hand. 4 years is a long time to grieve alone. Thomas wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life in that kitchen hiding from the world. Clara's throat tightened. "You don't know what he'd want." "I know he loved you, and I know love wants the beloved to be happy." Sarah squeezed her hand. "Whatever you're feeling for that man, don't run from it. Life's too short for running." She walked away, leaving Clara alone with her thoughts. That evening, Jesse appeared at the cookhouse door while Clara was cleaning up after dinner. The hands had gone the kitchen quiet, except for the crackle of the fire and the clink of dishes in the wash basin. "Need help?" Clara didn't turn around. "You should be resting." "I've rested enough." He picked up a dish towel without waiting for permission. "Besides, I owe you. For everything." "You don't owe me anything." "Then let me help, because I want to." They worked in silence for a while, washing and drying, a simple domestic rhythm that felt strangely natural. "Billy's improving," Clara said finally. "He's a good kid, just needs guidance. He looks up to you. I don't know why." Clara set down the plate she was washing and turned to face him. "Don't you? You're patient with him. You take time to teach him properly. You treat him like he matters." "He does matter. Not everyone sees it that way. Some of the hands think he's just a nuisance." Jesse's jaw tightened. "Then they're fools. That boy has more heart than half the men I've known." Something in his voice made Clara study him more closely. "You're thinking of someone else. My brother." The words came out rough. "Daniel. He was like Billy Young, eager, always trying to prove himself." Jesse's hands stilled on the dish he was drying. "He was 22 when Crawford's men killed him." "I'm sorry. He died trying to protect our mother. Died a hero." Jesse set the dish down carefully. "And I wasn't there to help him." Clara recognized that guilt, carried her own version of it every day. "You were getting medicine for your mother," she said quietly. "You were trying to help her." "I should have been home. And I should have been home when the fire started." Clara crossed her arms over her chest. "Should have been there to save my husband and son. But I wasn't. And no amount of wishing can change that." Their eyes met. Two people bound by loss. by guilt, by the terrible weight of surviving when others didn't. "How do you live with it?" Jesse asked. "One day at a time. One meal at a time. One breath at a time." Clara's voice softened. "And lately I've started to wonder if maybe surviving isn't something to feel guilty about. Maybe it's something to honor. Honor. By living. Really living. Not just existing." She took a step closer to him. "My son Benjamin, he was 3 years old. Full of joy. Full of wonder. He would have hated seeing me like this, closed off, afraid, half dead inside." Jesse's hand rose slowly, hovering near her face, but not touching. "You're not half dead, Clara. You're the most alive person I've met in 7 years. I didn't feel alive until you came." The admission hung between them. Raw, honest, terrifying. Jesse's fingers brushed her cheek. Just barely, the lightest touch. "I don't want to hurt you," he said hoarsely. "Then don't. I can't promise safety. Can't promise tomorrow. Crawford's still out there. Still hunting." "I know. So why?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid." Clara covered his hand with hers, pressing his palm against her cheek. "Because for the first time in 4 years, I feel something other than grief. And I'm not ready to let that go." Jesse closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were bright with emotion. "One day at a time," he asked. "One day at a time." He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. Not a kiss, something more intimate, a promise, a prayer. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? For seeing me. For believing in me. For reminding me that there's something worth fighting for." They stood like that for a long moment, breathing together, hearts beating in tandem. Then the kitchen door opened and they stepped apart. Billy stood in the doorway, his young face pale with excitement. "Jesse, you need to come quick. There's a stranger in town asking questions about you." The blood drained from Jesse's face. "What kind of questions?" "Asking if anyone's seen a man matching your description. Tall, dark hair, scar on his chin." Billy swallowed hard. "Offering money for information." Jesse's jaw set like stone. "How much money?" $500. The room went cold. Clara felt ice flood her veins. "That's the bounty," Jesse said flatly. "Crawford's bounty." "What do we do?" Billy asked. "We stay calm." Jesse's voice was steady, but Clara could see his hands trembling. "Did anyone in town tell him anything?" "Don't think so. Folks around here don't trust strangers asking questions. But Jesse—" Billy's voice cracked. "He's not alone. There are 3 of them, armed to the teeth. They look like trouble." "They are trouble." Jesse turned to Clara. "I need to leave. Tonight. Before they trace me here." "No." The word came out before Clara could stop it. Jesse stared at her. "Clara." "No, you're not running again." She grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "You've been running for 7 years. It hasn't solved anything. It won't solve this. If I stay, people could get hurt. You could get hurt. And if you leave, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." Clara's eyes blazed. "Is that what you want? Is that the life you're fighting for?" "I'm trying to protect you." "Then stay and fight. Stay and let us help you." Jesse looked at Billy, at Clara, at the kitchen that had become more of a home in 2 weeks than anywhere he'd been in 7 years. "I can't ask you to risk—" "You're not asking. We're offering." Clara's voice softened. "That's what family does, Jesse. They stand together. Family." The word hit him like a punch to the chest. He hadn't had a family in 7 years, hadn't let himself want one. But standing here in this warm kitchen with this fierce woman and this brave boy, he realized he'd already found one. "Marcus needs to know," he said finally. "I'll get him." Billy was already moving toward the door. "Stay here, both of you." He was gone before either could respond. Clara turned back to Jesse. "We'll figure this out." "You don't know Crawford. He's relentless. He won't stop until I'm dead." "Then we make sure you don't die." Clara took his hands in hers. "I just found you, Jesse Hollister. I'm not losing you now." He stared at her, this woman, who had every reason to protect herself to stay safe to avoid trouble. Instead, she was standing with him, fighting for him. "Why?" he asked. "Why risk everything for a man you barely know?" "Because I know enough." Clara squeezed his hands. "I know you're kind. I know you're brave. I know you're carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry." Clara. "And I know that when you look at me, you don't see a broken widow going through the motions. You see me. The real me. The one I'd forgotten existed." Jesse pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. "I won't let them hurt you," he whispered into her hair. "Whatever happens, I swear it." "I know you won't." They held each other as the fire crackled and the winter wind howled outside. Two people standing on the edge of a storm, choosing to face it together. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later, his face grim. Behind him came Tom Mueller and 3 other senior hands, all armed. "Billy told me." Marcus's eyes swept the kitchen, assessing. "How much time do we have?" "Hard to say," Jesse answered. "If they're asking questions in town, they might be there all night, or they might already be on their way here. Then we prepare for both." Marcus turned to Tom. "Double the watch tonight. I want men on every approach. Anyone comes within a mile of this ranch, I want to know about it." "Yes, sir." "And Tom?" Marcus's voice hardened. "These men are dangerous. If they don't respond to warnings, shoot first. Understood?" Tom nodded, his weathered face set like stone. "Understood." The hands dispersed to take positions. Marcus turned back to Jesse and Clara. "You should stay inside tonight, both of you. Clara's room has only one entrance. Easy to defend." "I should be out there with the men," Jesse protested. "No. You're the one they're hunting. You need to stay hidden until we know what we're dealing with." Marcus gripped Jesse's shoulder. "This isn't cowardice, son. It's strategy. We don't know how many men Crawford has or what they know. Until we do, you're more valuable alive and hidden than dead in a gunfight." Jesse's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "And Clara?" Marcus's expression softened. "Keep him calm. Keep him safe. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good." Marcus headed for the door. "I'll send word when we know more. Lock this door behind me and don't open it for anyone except me or Tom." He left, and the night closed in around them. Clara locked the door as instructed. Then she turned to Jesse, who was pacing the length of the kitchen like a caged animal. "You should sit down," she said. "I can't. Not while they're out there. Not while people are risking their lives for me." "They're risking their lives because they choose to." Clara caught his arm, stopping his pacing. "Because you've earned their loyalty. I've been here 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, you've worked harder than anyone. You've helped without being asked. You've treated everyone with respect." She pulled him toward a chair. "Sit, please. You're still healing." Reluctantly, Jesse sat. Clara poured him coffee and pressed the cup into his hands. "Drink." He took a sip, more to please her than from any desire for it. His mind was racing, planning, calculating. "If they find me, they won't. But if they do, Jesse." Clara sat across from him and took his hands. "Look at me." He met her eyes. "Whatever happens tonight, we face it together. You're not alone anymore. Understand?" Something in his chest loosened. The constant tension he'd carried for 7 years, the hypervigilance, the certainty that he could only rely on himself, it began to crack. "I don't know how to let people help me," he admitted. "Then learn." Clara's grip tightened. "That's what we do. We learn. We grow. We change. And if I get you killed, then I'll die knowing I lived my last days truly alive, that I cared about someone again, that I loved again. The word hung in the air. Love. Neither of them had said it before. Neither of them was ready to say it now. But it was there. Unspoken. Undeniable. Clara! A knock at the door made them both jump. It's Tom. The voice was muffled, but recognizable. Open up. Clara crossed to the door and opened it. Tom stepped inside, snow melting on his shoulders. They're gone, he said. Left town about an hour ago, headed south. Jessie stood slowly. They left? Looks like. The bartender said they got into an argument with each other. One of them thought you might be up in Helena. They decided to check there first. Relief flooded through the kitchen like warm water. So, we're safe? Clara asked. For now. Tom's face remained grim. But they'll be back. Men like that don't give up easy, and next time they might ask better questions, or offer more money. Then we use the time we have, Jessie said. Get those documents to the federal marshal. Build a case against Crawford. Already working on it. Tom nodded toward the main house. Marcus is writing a letter tonight. Doc Whitfield's adding his sworn statement. Come spring, we'll ride to Helena and present everything to Marshal Douglas ourselves. Come spring. Jessie's voice was heavy. That's months away. Months for Crawford's men to search Helena. Months for the trail to go cold. Tom actually smiled. Sometimes winter is a blessing, son. Makes it easier to hide. After Tom left, Clara relocked the door and turned to Jessie. He was standing by the window, staring out at the darkness. She crossed to him and slipped her hand into his. You should sleep, she said. I don't think I can. Then sit with me by the fire. We'll wait out the night together. They settled into chairs by the stove, close enough that their shoulders touched. The kitchen was warm and quiet, the crisis past but not forgotten. Tell me something, Clara said after a long silence. Something good, something from before. Jessie was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother used to sing while she cooked, old hymns, folk songs. She had the most beautiful voice. What was her name? Elizabeth, but my father called her Beth. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. They were married 30 years, still looked at each other like newlyweds. That's beautiful. It was. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Thought I had forever to tell them how much they meant to me. His voice roughened. I never got the chance. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. Tell me about your brother. Daniel was 4 years older than me, stronger, braver, everything I wanted to be. Jessie's arm came around her, pulling her closer. He used to protect me from bullies when I was small, said that's what big brothers were for. He sounds wonderful. He was. He would have liked you. Clara smiled. You think so? I know so. He always said I needed someone who could stand up to me, someone with fire. I have fire. You saved a stranger's life without hesitation. You stood up to me when I tried to run. You looked a wanted man in the eye and told him you believed him. Jessie's voice softened. That's more than fire, Clara. That's courage. She lifted her head to look at him. In the firelight, his face was all shadows and angles, but his eyes were warm. I wasn't always like this, she said. Before the fire, I was gentle, soft. Thomas used to say, I was too kind for this world. What changed? Everything. When you lose everything you love in a single day, you either break or you harden. Clara's voice was matter-of-fact. I hardened, built walls, kept everyone at a distance. But not me. No. She reached up to touch his face. Not you. Jessie turned his head and pressed a kiss to her palm. A simple gesture, but it made her heart race. We should wait, he said quietly. Until this is over. Until Crawford is stopped. I know. I don't want to start something I might not be able to finish. I know that too. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, watching the fire burn low. But when it's over, Jesse said finally, when Crawford is gone and my name is cleared, yes. He turned to face her fully. I'd like to take you walking on a Sunday, proper-like, the way a man courts a woman he respects. Clara felt warmth bloom in her chest. I'd like that. And maybe if things go well, one day at a time, she reminded him. Remember, one day at a time. He smiled, and the smile transformed his whole face. But I'm allowed to hope, aren't I? We're both allowed to hope. Outside, the wind howled, and the snow fell. Somewhere out there, dangerous men were hunting. But inside the kitchen, two broken people had found something unexpected. They'd found each other, and that for now was enough. The night passed slowly but peacefully. Jesse dozed in the chair, Clara's hand still in his. She watched him sleep, memorizing the lines of his face, the way his breathing steadied when he relaxed. She hadn't watched a man sleep in 4 years. Hadn't let herself want to. But wanting this felt different. Safe. Right. When dawn finally broke, painting the kitchen in shades of gray and gold, Jesse's eyes opened. He looked at her, and for a moment neither spoke. Then he smiled. Good morning. Good morning. I'm still here. I noticed. He sat up, stretching carefully, mindful of his healing wound. The coffee hot? It can be. Clara rose to tend the stove, and Jesse watched her move through the familiar morning routine. There was something sacred about it, something he hadn't known he was missing. Clara, she turned. Whatever happens next, he said quietly. Whatever Crawford throws at us, I want you to know. The kitchen door burst open. Billy McCraw stood there, wild-eyed and gasping for breath. The cattle, stampede, Tom's hurt. We need help now. Jesse was on his feet before Billy finished speaking. Where? North pasture. Something spooked them. Tom tried to turn the herd and his horse went down. Jesse grabbed his coat and hat. Let's go. Jesse, wait! Clara started, but he was already running. Jesse rode hard through the blinding snow, Billy close behind. His wound screamed with every jolt of the horse, but he pushed the pain down. Tom was hurt. The herd was scattered. Nothing else mattered. They reached the north pasture in minutes that felt like hours. The scene was chaos. Cattle running in every direction, their bellows filling the frozen air. Ranch hands shouting, trying to turn the herd, failing. And there, in the middle of it all, Tom Mueller lay crumpled on the ground, his horse standing nearby, favoring one leg. Get him out of there, Jesse shouted to Billy. I'll turn the herd. Jesse, there's too many. Just do it. Jesse spurred his horse forward into the heart of the stampede. Cattle crashed around him, wild-eyed and terrified. One wrong move and he'd be trampled. But Jesse didn't think about that. He thought about Tom, who'd given him a chance when he didn't have to. He thought about the hands who'd accepted him as one of their own. He thought about Clara waiting back at the cookhouse. He couldn't let them down. Yeah. Jesse swung his rope, cracking it above the lead cattle's heads. Turn, you stubborn, turn. The lead steer hesitated. Then slowly, impossibly, it began to curve. The others followed their momentum, shifting, the deadly straight line becoming a circle. Jesse kept pushing, kept shouting, kept cracking his rope until the herd slowed, then stopped, then stood heaving and confused in the winter cold. Lord Almighty! Someone breathed behind him. Jesse turned. Half the ranch hands had gathered, staring at him with something like awe. I ain't never seen riding like that, old Pete said. Not in 40 years of working cattle. Tom! Jesse's voice was hoarse. How's Tom? Alive, Billy called out. He was kneeling beside the fallen man, pressing cloth to a wound on Tom's head. Busted up but alive, thanks to you getting those cattle turned. Jesse dismounted and crossed to Tom. The older man's eyes were open, focusing with difficulty. Cade, Tom muttered. That was damn fool riding. Got the job done. Yeah. A ghost of a smile crossed Tom's bloodied face. Yeah, it did. They got Tom back to the ranch on a makeshift stretcher. Clara met them at the door of the main house, her face pale, but her hands steady. Bring him inside. I need hot water, clean cloth, and someone find Doc Whitfield. Doc went to town this morning, Marcus said. Won't be back until tonight. Then I'll handle it myself. Clara was already rolling up her sleeves. Jesse helped me get him to the bed. They worked together, Clara issuing orders with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this before. She cleaned Tom's wounds, stitched a deep gash on his forehead, splinted what she suspected was a cracked rib. Through it all, Jesse stayed by her side, handing her supplies, holding Tom steady when the pain made him thrash. You're good at this, Jesse said quietly as Clara finished the final bandage. I used to help the town doctor back in Massachusetts. Before. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. He'll be all right. Needs rest, but he'll heal. Tom had passed out from the pain, his breathing steady now. Clara covered him with a quilt and stepped back. You saved his life, she said to Jesse. I turned some cattle. You rode into a stampede, alone, without hesitation. Clara's voice cracked. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. That's not the point. Then what is... Clara grabbed the front of his shirt, her fingers twisting in the blood-stained fabric. The point is, I can't lose you. Not now. Not after... She stopped, swallowed hard. Jesse covered her hands with his. You won't lose me. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll fight like hell to stay. He lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. For you. For this. For the first real home I've had in 7 years. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Jesse. I know we said we'd wait. I know there's danger coming. But Clara? His voice roughened. I don't want to wait anymore. I've spent 7 years waiting. Hiding. Running from everything good because I was afraid it would be taken away. And now? Now I'd rather have one day of something real than a lifetime of nothing at all. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met. Soft at first, tentative. Two people who'd forgotten how to trust learning again. Then Clara's hand slid up his chest around his neck, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, became something more. Something hungry. Something that had been building since the moment he'd collapsed on her doorstep. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jesse rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I know it's too soon. I know there's no good reason for you to believe me. But I love you, Clara Whitmore. I think I have since you stitched me up and told me not to scream. Clara laughed, the sound wet with tears. I love you too. And you're right, it's too soon and there's no good reason and I don't care. I love you anyway. They held each other in the quiet room, Tom's steady breathing the only sound. What do we do now? Clara asked. Now we wait. For Doc Whitfield. For spring. For the chance to clear my name. Jesse pulled back enough to look at her. And we stay together. Whatever comes. Whatever comes. Clara agreed. The peace lasted 3 days. 3 days of stolen moments and growing hope. 3 days of Jesse working alongside the hands while Clara watched from the cookhouse window. 3 days of evening conversations by the fire hands, intertwined hearts opening. Then the riders came. It was late afternoon when Billy spotted them. 6 men on horseback approaching from the south road. Armed. Dangerous. Moving with purpose. Jesse. Billy burst into the barn where Jesse was grooming his horse. Riders coming. 6 of them. And Jesse. The boy's face was white. One of them is the man from town, the one asking questions. Jesse's blood went cold. Get Marcus. Get the hands armed. And Billy. He grabbed the boy's shoulder. Keep Clara in the cookhouse. Lock the door. Don't let her out no matter what. What about you? I'll be fine. Jesse, go. Billy ran. Jesse finished strapping on his gun belt with hands that didn't shake. He'd known this was coming, had been preparing for it since the night Crawford's men appeared in town. Now it was here. He walked out of the barn to find Marcus already in the yard, rifle in hand. The other hands were taking positions, spreading out to cover the approaches. "You should stay hidden," Marcus said quietly. "No, this is my fight. It's all our fight now." The riders reached the edge of the ranch and stopped. Their leader urged his horse forward a few paces, a big man with a cruel face and dead eyes. "We're looking for a man named Jesse Hollister," he called out. "Word is, he's working here under a false name." "Don't know anyone by that name," Marcus replied calmly. "That's so." The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you won't mind if we search the place?" "Actually, I do mind. This is private property. You've got no authority here." "Authority?" The man laughed. "We've got all the authority we need." His hand moved toward his gun. "I wouldn't do that," Jesse called out, stepping forward into clear view. 6 against 12 aren't good odds, even for Crawford's men. The leader's eyes fixed on Jesse. Recognition flickered across his face. "Jesse Hollister, finally." He spat in the dirt. "You've led us on quite a chase, boy." "I'm not a boy anymore, Harlan, and I'm done running." The man Harlan shifted in his saddle. "Crawford wants you dead, preferably slow. Says you owe him for 7 years of trouble." "Crawford owes me my family, my home, my life." Jesse's voice was steady but cold as winter ice. "Tell him if he wants me, he can come get me himself, instead of sending dogs to do his killing." Harlan's face darkened. "Big talk for a dead man." "I'm not dead yet." "Matter of time." The tension stretched tight as a bowstring. Jesse could feel the hands behind him ready to fight. Could feel Clara's eyes on him from the cookhouse window. "You've got 2 choices," Jesse said. "Ride away now and tell Crawford I'm waiting for him, or try your luck and die in this yard." "You think you can take all 6 of us? I think these men behind me won't let you leave alive if you start shooting." Jesse's hand hovered over his gun. "Your choice, Harlan. How do you want to die?" For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Harlan laughed again, but this time there was something uncertain in it. He looked at the armed men surrounding them, at the rifles pointed from barn loft and bunkhouse windows. "This ain't over, Hollister." "I know it isn't. Crawford will come. And when he does, all these people who took you in—" Harlan's smile turned vicious. "They'll burn right alongside you. Then I'll be ready." Harlan held Jesse's gaze for another moment. Then he jerked his head at his men. "Let's go. We got what we came for." They wheeled their horses and rode back the way they'd come, disappearing into the gathering dusk. Nobody relaxed until they were completely out of sight. "They'll be back," Marcus said quietly. "I know. With more men. Maybe Crawford himself." "I know that too." Marcus turned to face Jesse fully. "Then we'd better be ready. And son?" He gripped Jesse's shoulder. "It's time everyone here knew the full truth. Who you really are. What we're really fighting for." Jesse nodded slowly. "Gather the hands. I'll tell them everything." They assembled in the cookhouse, all of them the senior hands, the younger ones, even Sarah McCraw, who'd come to support Clara. Jesse stood at the front of the room, Clara beside him, and told them the truth. All of it. His real name, his family's murder, Crawford's lies, 7 years of running, the documents Doc Whitfield had brought, everything. When he finished, the room was silent. Then old Pete spoke up. "So you're telling us you're innocent, that this Crawford fella killed your kin and blamed you for it?" "Yes." "And you've got proof?" "We've got letters, sworn statements, enough to take to a federal marshal." Pete exchanged looks with the other hands. Then he nodded. "Well, hell, I figured there was something about you. A man don't learn to ride like that without good breeding." He crossed his arms. "I'm in." In to fight, to stand with you. Pete looked around the room. Any man here got a problem with that? Silence. Then, one by one, the hands spoke up. I'm in. Me too. Crawford's got no right to bring his war to our land. We stand together. Jesse felt his throat tighten. These men didn't know him. Not really. He'd been here a few weeks and they were willing to risk their lives for him. I don't know how to thank you, he managed. Don't thank us yet, Tom Mueller said from the doorway. He was pale and moving carefully, but he was on his feet. Thank us when Crawford's beaten and you're a free man. Tom, you should be resting. I'll rest when I'm dead. Tom limped forward to stand with the others. You saved my life out there, Cade Hollister, whatever you call yourself. Reckon I owe you one. After the hands dispersed to prepare defenses, Jesse and Clara stood alone in the kitchen. She hadn't said a word during his confession, hadn't reacted when he'd revealed the full scope of his past. Clara. You told me you were running from trouble. Her voice was quiet. You didn't tell me you were running from murder charges. I know. You didn't tell me there's a bounty on your head, that dangerous men are hunting you, that being with you could get me killed. I know, Jesse's voice cracked. I should have told you everything from the beginning. I was afraid. Afraid of what? That I'd turn you in, that I'd run, that you'd look at me the way everyone else has for 7 years, like a monster, like something to be feared. Clara was silent for a long moment. Jesse's heart hammered in his chest. Then she crossed to him and took his face in her hands. You listen to me, Jesse Hollister. I have looked into your eyes. I have held your hand. I have kissed you and loved you and watched you risk your life for people you barely know. Her voice shook with intensity. You are not a monster. You are the best man I've ever met. Clara, I'm angry that you didn't tell me everything. I'm scared of what's coming, but I am not walking away. Her eyes blazed. You hear me? I am not walking away. Jesse pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight he could feel her heart beating against his chest. I don't deserve you. Probably not. There was a hint of her old fire in the words. But you've got me anyway, so deal with it. He laughed, the sound choked with emotion. Yes, ma'am. They held each other as darkness fell outside, and the ranch prepared for war. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Doc Whitfield rode in at dawn, his horse lathered despite the cold. He barely waited for the animal to stop before swinging down and hurrying toward the main house. Jesse Marcus, where are you? Jesse met him on the porch. Doc, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. The old man was grinning something Jesse had never seen before. I found it. I found the evidence we need. What evidence? Come inside. Everyone needs to hear this. They gathered again in the main house, Jesse, Clara, Marcus, Tom, and the senior hands. Doc Whitfield spread papers across the table, his aged hands trembling with excitement. I've been corresponding with Marshal Douglas in Helena. Sent him copies of the documents I had. Yesterday he sent this back. He held up a letter. Official seal. Federal government. It's a warrant, Doc said, for Silas Crawford's arrest, on charges of murder fraud and witness tampering. The room exploded with reactions. Jesse grabbed the table edge for support. How? He managed. The marshal's been building a case against Crawford for years. Your father wasn't his only victim. Crawford's been stealing land, killing settlers, bribing lawmen all across Texas. Doc's voice shook with triumph. But nobody would testify. They were all too scared. And now we've got Peter's deathbed confession. We've got your father's letters proving Crawford's threats. And we've got something else. Doc pulled out another document. A witness. A man named Samuel Tucker, former deputy who helped frame you. He came forward last month, says he can't live with the guilt anymore. Jesse's knees gave out. He sank into a chair, staring at the papers like they might disappear. It's over, he whispered. It's really over. Not quite. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Crawford doesn't know about the warrant yet, and he's got men heading here. We need to survive long enough for the marshal to act." "How long?" "Douglas is riding south with a federal posse. Should be here within the week." "A week?" Jesse looked up. "Crawford's men could be back any day." "Then we hold them off." Marcus's jaw set. "We've faced worse odds. We'll face these too." Clara took Jesse's hand, squeezing tight. "1 week. We can survive 1 week. We can survive anything," Jesse said, strength returning to his voice. "Together." The next few days passed in tense preparation. The hands fortified the ranch, setting up defensive positions, stockpiling ammunition, establishing watch rotations. Jesse worked alongside them, his wound nearly healed, now his body strong, his mind focused. This was it. The confrontation he'd been running from for 7 years. But he wasn't running anymore. Clara kept the men fed, kept morale high, kept Jesse grounded when the waiting threatened to drive him mad. "You're going to wear a hole in that floor," she told him one night, watching him pace the cookhouse. "I can't help it." "Come here." She patted the chair beside her. "Sit." He sat. She took his hand. "Whatever happens," Clara said, "I want you to know something. These past weeks with you, they've been the happiest I've had since I lost Thomas and Benjamin." "Clara, let me finish." She squeezed his hand. "I was dead inside when you came here, going through the motions, existing but not living. You changed that. You changed me too. Then we saved each other." She smiled that rare smile that transformed her whole face. "Seems like a good foundation for a future." "If we have a future." "We will." Her voice was fierce. "We will, Jesse, because I refuse to accept any other outcome." He leaned forward and kissed her, soft, sweet, full of promise. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." They sat together by the fire hands, intertwined hearts beating in tandem. Tomorrow would bring danger. Tomorrow would bring fear. But tonight, there was just the two of them, and the knowledge that whatever came, they would face it together. The storm finally broke on the 6th day. Billy spotted them first, a cloud of riders approaching from the south. Not 6 this time, at least 20. "They're here!" he shouted, running for the main house. "They're here!" Jesse was already moving, grabbing his rifle, checking his pistol. Around him, the hands took their positions, faces grim, weapons ready. "Clara," he said, turning to her, "get to the cellar. Don't come out until—" "No." "Clara, please." "I said no." She grabbed a rifle from the rack by the door. "I can shoot. I can help. If something happens to you, then we'll face it together." She met his eyes, fierce and unafraid. "Isn't that what you said?" Jesse stared at her. This woman who'd saved his life, who'd believed in him, who'd loved him despite everything. "Stay behind cover," he said finally. "And for God's sake, be careful." "Same to you." The riders thundered into the yard and stopped. At their head was a man Jesse recognized from 1,000 nightmares. Silas Crawford. Older now, grayer, but with the same cold eyes, the same cruel smile. "Jesse Hollister," Crawford called out. "Thought you could hide from me forever." Jesse stepped forward, rifle in hand. "I stopped hiding, Crawford. Question is, are you ready to face what's coming?" Crawford laughed. "What's coming is your death, and the death of everyone here who helped you. We'll see about that." "Yes." Crawford's smile widened. "We will." He raised his hand, and his men surged forward. The battle for Broken Arrow Ranch had begun. Gunfire exploded across the ranch yard. Jesse dove behind the water trough as bullets splintered the wood above his head. He fired back, saw one of Crawford's men fall, then another. Around him, the ranch hands held their ground rifles, cracking in steady rhythm. "Hold the line!" Marcus shouted from somewhere to his left. Don't let them get past the corral." Jesse risked a glance over the trough. Crawford's men were spreading out trying to flank them. Professional, organized. This wasn't a raid, it was a military assault. "Billy!" Jesse called out. "Cover the east side. They're trying to circle around." "Got it." The boy sprinted toward the barn, rifle in hand, moving with a courage that made Jesse's chest tight. A bullet whizzed past Jesse's ear. He dropped, rolled, came up firing. Another man down, but there were too many. For every one that fell, two more pressed forward. "Jesse!" Clara's voice cut through the chaos. He spun. She was crouched behind a feed cart near the cookhouse. Her rifle raised, her face pale but determined. "I'm fine," she called. "Watch your left." He turned just in time to see a Crawford man rushing him with a knife. Jesse blocked the blade with his rifle twisted and drove his elbow into the man's face. The attacker went down hard and didn't get up. "Clara, get inside!" Jesse shouted. "Not happening!" A bullet caught the feed cart, spraying splinters. Clara ducked, then rose and fired. Her shot took down a rider bearing straight toward her. "Good shot," Jesse breathed. "My father taught me," she called back. "Said a woman in the West needs to know how to defend herself." The battle raged on. Minutes that felt like hours. Jesse lost track of how many shots he fired, how many times he narrowly avoided death. His arms burned, his wound throbbed, but he kept fighting. Then he heard it. A scream. Young. Terrified. Billy. Jesse's blood went cold. He abandoned his cover and ran toward the barn, heedless of the bullets flying around him. He found Billy pinned behind a hay bale, two of Crawford's men closing in on him. The boy's rifle was empty, his face white with fear. "Hey!" Jesse roared. The men spun. Jesse fired twice. Both dropped. "Billy, you hurt?" "No, I ran out of ammunition." "Here." Jesse tossed him a box of cartridges. "Reload. Stay down." "And Billy?" "Yeah. You're doing good, son. Real good." Billy's terrified face steadied. He nodded and began reloading with shaking hands. Jesse turned back toward the main fight, but something made him pause. A figure moving through the smoke. Tall. Deliberate. Coming straight toward him. Crawford. The man who'd murdered his family. Who'd stolen his life. Who'd hunted him for 7 years. Here. Now. Alone. Hollister. Crawford's voice was calm, almost pleasant. Like they were meeting for coffee instead of combat. "I've waited a long time for this." "So have I." Crawford smiled. "Your father begged, you know, at the end. Begged me to spare your mother, your brother." Jesse's hands tightened on his rifle. "Shut up." He got down on his knees. Harrison Hollister, the great cattle king, kneeling in the dirt like a dog. Crawford's smile widened. "I made him watch while my men—" Jesse didn't think, didn't plan. He just moved. He swung the rifle like a club. Crawford dodged faster than a man his age should be and drew his pistol. Jesse knocked it aside with his forearm, felt the bullet burn past his ribs. They crashed together, grappling, rolling in the dirt. Crawford was strong, stronger than Jesse expected, and fought with the viciousness of a man who'd killed before and enjoyed it. "I'm going to kill you slow," Crawford hissed in Jesse's ear. "Like I should have done 7 years ago." Jesse slammed his forehead into Crawford's nose. Blood sprayed. Crawford howled and loosened his grip just enough for Jesse to break free. They faced each other, both breathing hard. Crawford's nose was a ruin, blood streaming down his face. Jesse's side was on fire where the bullet had grazed him. "You should have stayed hidden, boy." Crawford drew a knife from his belt. "Could have lived out your days in some backwater ranch pretending to be someone else." "I'm done pretending." Jesse circled slowly, watching the knife. "Done running. Done letting you win. You can't beat me. You're just a scared kid playing at being a man." "I was a scared kid." Jesse's voice hardened. "But that was 7 years ago. You want to know what I've learned since then?" Crawford lunged with the knife. Jesse sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. The knife clattered to the ground. "I've learned that fear doesn't make you weak." Jesse drove his fist into Crawford's stomach. "Running doesn't make you a coward." Another blow to the jaw. "And the only thing standing between me and my life is you." Crawford staggered back, but he wasn't finished. He pulled a derringer from his boot, small, deadly, aimed directly at Jesse's chest. "Any last words, Hollister?" Jesse stared down the barrel. "Yeah. Look behind you." Crawford hesitated. A mistake. Clara's rifle butt connected with the back of his skull with a sound like a melon splitting. Crawford dropped like a stone. Jesse stared at Clara. She was breathing hard, her dress torn, her face streaked with dirt and gunpowder. "Told you I wasn't leaving," she said. "You just saved your life again." She lowered the rifle. "Don't make a habit of needing it." Jesse laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "Yes, ma'am." Around them, the gunfire was dying down. Crawford's men, seeing their leader fall, were losing heart. Some threw down their weapons. Others tried to flee. "Hold them!" Marcus shouted. "Don't let any of them escape!" The ranch hands surged forward, rounding up the survivors. Within minutes, it was over. Jesse stood over Crawford's unconscious form, his chest heaving. 7 years. 7 years of running, hiding, looking over his shoulder. And now, it was done. "Jesse." Clara touched his arm. "It's over." "Is it?" He looked at her, something fragile and desperate in his eyes. "Is it really over?" "It is." She took his face in her hands. "He can't hurt you anymore. Can't hurt anyone." Jesse pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. His whole body was shaking. "I keep expecting to wake up," he whispered. "To find out this was all a dream." "It's not a dream." Clara held him tight. "It's real. You're safe. We're safe." They stood there wrapped in each other, while around them the ranch hands secured the prisoners and tended the wounded. Billy approached cautiously. "Jesse, Miss Clara, you two all right?" Jesse pulled back, wiping his eyes. "We're fine, Billy. How about you?" "Got a scratch on my arm. Nothing serious." The boy's face was pale but proud. "Did we win?" "Yeah, kid." Jesse managed a smile. "We won." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The wounded were treated. Thankfully, no one from the ranch had been killed, though several had injuries that would take time to heal. Crawford's men were bound and secured in the barn, awaiting the arrival of law enforcement. Crawford himself was kept under heavy guard. When he regained consciousness, his arrogance had faded, replaced by the desperate rage of a man who knew his empire was crumbling. "This isn't over, Hollister," he screamed from where he sat, tied to a support beam. "I've got friends, powerful friends. They'll what?" Jesse crouched in front of him. "Rescue you, I doubt it. From what I hear, most of your friends are already being rounded up. Seems the federal marshals have been waiting for an excuse to move on you." "You're lying." "Am I?" Jesse pulled out the warrant Doc Whitfield had shown them. "This is a federal arrest warrant. For murder. Fraud. Witness tampering." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You're finished, Crawford. Everything you built, everything you stole, it's over." Crawford's face contorted with fury. "I should have killed you myself. Should have cut your throat the night I killed your family." "Yeah." Jesse stood. "You should have, but you didn't. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison thinking about that mistake." He walked away without looking back. Clara found him later sitting on the porch of the main house, staring at the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of red and gold, beautiful and peaceful, a strange contrast to the violence of the day. "How are you feeling?" she asked, settling beside him. "I don't know." Jesse's voice was distant. "Empty, I think. Like there's supposed to be something inside me, and it's just Gone. The anger, maybe. The fear. Yeah. He looked at his hands. I've been carrying it so long I don't know who I am without it. Clara took one of his hands in hers. You're Jesse Hollister, son of Harrison and Elizabeth, brother of Daniel. A man who survived impossible odds and never stopped being decent despite everything the world threw at him. That's who I was. That's who you are. She squeezed his hand. The past doesn't disappear just because Crawford's been caught. It's part of you, always will be. I don't want it to be. I know. But Jesse... Clara turned his face toward her. That past made you who you are. Made you strong enough to survive. Kind enough to help a wounded stranger turn a stampede. Brave enough to face your demons head on. His eyes met hers. And what about you? What did your past make you? Scared, careful, closed off. She smiled sadly. But it also made me recognize something worth fighting for when I saw it. And what did you see? You. She leaned forward and kissed him softly. I saw you. They sat together as the sun sank below the horizon and the stars began to emerge. The ranch was quiet now, the day's violence giving way to an exhausted peace. What happens now? Clara asked. The marshal should arrive tomorrow or the day after. He'll take Crawford and his men back to Helena for trial. And then I testify. Tell the truth about what happened to my family. Let the law do what it should have done 7 years ago. And after that, Jesse was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know. I've never thought past survival. Never let myself imagine a future. Maybe it's time you started. He turned to look at her. In the starlight, her face was soft, beautiful, full of a hope he was only beginning to understand. What kind of future did you have in mind? One where you stop running, where you build something real. Clara's hand found his. With me. Clara, I know it's soon. I know we've got history and baggage and 100 reasons to be careful. Her voice trembled, but held steady. But I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of protecting myself from happiness because I'm afraid it won't last. You deserve better than a man with a past like mine. I deserve a man who loves me, who respects me, who sees me. Clara's eyes blazed. You do all three, the rest is just details. Jesse stared at her. This woman who'd saved his life, believed in him, fought beside him. Who'd looked at him with eyes that saw past the wanted posters and the violence and the years of running. I love you, he said. God help me, I love you more than I've ever loved anything. Then stay. Clara's voice cracked. Stop running and stay. Where? Here, with me. She gestured at the ranch around them. Marcus needs help. The hands respect you. There's a life here, Jesse. A real life. If you want it. If I want it. Jesse laughed, the sound raw with emotion. Clara, I've wanted something like this since I was 15 years old. A home. A family. Someone to belong to. Then take it. She pulled his hand to her heart. It's yours. I'm yours. If you'll have me. Jesse didn't answer with words. He pulled her close and kissed her, pouring 7 years of loneliness and hope and desperate longing into that single act. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. Yes, Jesse whispered. Yes, I'll stay. Yes to all of it. Clara laughed through her tears. Was that so hard? Hardest thing I've ever done. He wiped his eyes. And the easiest. The federal marshal arrived 2 days later, just as predicted. Douglas was a big man with a no-nonsense manner and a reputation for fairness that had preceded him. He rode into Broken Arrow with 6 deputies, took one look at the secured prisoners, and nodded with satisfaction. Jesse Hollister. He approached Jesse with an extended hand. I've been waiting a long time to meet you. Wish it could have been under better circumstances. I wish it could have been 7 years ago. Douglas's grip was firm. Would have saved us both a lot of trouble. They sat down in Marcus's study, and Jesse told his story from the beginning. The marshal listened without interruption, taking notes, occasionally asking for clarification. When Jesse finished, Douglas leaned back in his chair. You know, Hollister, I've been investigating Silas Crawford for 5 years. 5 years of dead ends and silenced witnesses, and evidence that disappeared before I could collect it. I'm sorry I couldn't. Don't apologize. Douglas held up a hand. You were surviving. That's nothing to be ashamed of. He tapped his notebook. But now we've got him. Thanks to your testimony, Doc Whitfield's documents, and Tucker's confession, we've got enough to put Crawford away for the rest of his natural life. What about the murder charges against me? Already taken care of. Douglas pulled a document from his coat. This is a full pardon signed by the territorial governor. As of this moment, Jesse Hollister is officially a free man. Jesse took the paper with numb hands. A pardon, after 7 years of running. I don't know what to say. Say you'll testify at the trial. Help us make sure Crawford and his men never hurt anyone again. I'll be there. Good. Douglas stood and offered his hand again. Welcome back to the world, Mr. Hollister. The marshal and his deputies left the next morning, Crawford and his surviving men in chains. The ranch hands gathered to watch them go, their faces grim with satisfaction. Good riddance, Pete muttered, as the last horse disappeared over the hill. Amen to that, Tom agreed. Jesse stood apart watching until the riders were completely out of sight. Clara joined him, slipping her hand into his. How does it feel? She asked. Strange. He turned the pardon over in his hands. I keep expecting to wake up, to find out it was all a dream. It's not a dream. I know. Jesse looked at her. But it doesn't feel real yet, like part of me is still running. Give it time. Clara squeezed his hand. You've spent 7 years looking over your shoulder. That doesn't change overnight. What if it never changes? What if I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop? Then I'll be here to remind you that you're safe. That you're home. Clara stepped closer. Every day for as long as it takes. That could be a long time. I've got nothing but time. Jesse pulled her into his arms. What did I do to deserve you? You saved my life. You believed in me. You showed me that it was possible to hope again. Clara smiled. I'd say we're even. They stood there wrapped in each other as the Montana wind swept across the ranch. Around them, life was already returning to normal. Hands went back to their duties. Cattle lowed in the distance. The cookhouse smoke rose steadily into the winter sky. There's something I need to do, Jesse said finally. What's that? Talk to Marcus. About the ranch. About my father's connection to this place. Jesse's jaw tightened. I need to understand why my father bought this land, what he was planning. Do you want me to come with you? Please. They found Marcus in his study going over paperwork as if nothing had changed. He looked up as they entered, his weathered face creasing into a smile. Jesse, Clara, I was hoping you'd come by. We need to talk. Jesse sat down across from him. About my father. About Broken Arrow. Marcus nodded slowly. I figured this conversation was coming. Doc Whitfield said my father bought this ranch years ago, as a secret investment, but he never told anyone, not even my mother. That's right. Why, what was he planning? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed and reached into his desk drawer, pulling out a faded envelope. Your father gave me this, 20 years ago when we first met. Said if anything ever happened to him, I should give it to his youngest son. Jesse took the envelope with trembling hands. His name was written on the front in his father's familiar handwriting. I've kept it safe all these years, Marcus continued. Waiting, hoping you'd eventually find your way here. You knew I'd come. I knew Harrison Hollister's blood would lead you somewhere safe eventually. Didn't know it would be here, but I prayed for it." Jesse opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. His father's voice seemed to reach across the years. "My dearest Jesse," he read aloud. "If you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. But you survived. I knew you would. You always were the strongest of us, even if you didn't know it." His voice broke. Clara's hand found his shoulder, steadying him. Jesse continued reading. "I bought Broken Arrow as insurance. A safe place far from Crawford's reach where my family could go if things ever got too dangerous. I never told your mother because I didn't want to frighten her. Perhaps that was a mistake. The ranch is yours, Jesse. The land, the cattle, everything. Marcus has the deed. He'll explain everything. Build a life there, son. The life I couldn't give you. Find love. Find peace. Find happiness. And know that wherever I am, I'm proud of you. Always have been. Always will be. Your loving father, Harrison." The room was silent when Jesse finished reading. "He knew," Jesse whispered. "He knew Crawford was coming. He prepared for it." "Harrison was a smart man," Marcus said quietly. "But he couldn't have predicted how bad it would get, or how long you'd have to run. The ranch is mine. Legally, yes. Your father put it in a trust with me as administrator until you came of age or claimed it." Marcus pulled out another document. "I've been waiting to give you this." Jesse stared at the deed, his name written in legal script, owner of Broken Arrow Ranch. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Marcus stood and crossed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your father wanted you to have a home, a future. Everything Crawford stole from you. But this is your home, your life. It can be both." Marcus smiled. "I'm getting old, Jesse. Too old to run this place alone. I was going to ask you to stay anyway as foreman, as partner. Now I'm asking you to stay as owner. And you? I'll stay as long as you'll have me. Help you learn the business. Pass on what I know." His grip tightened. "Your father was my friend. Helping his son is the least I can do." Jesse looked at Clara, at Marcus, at the deed in his hands. A home, a future. Everything he'd lost returned to him in ways he never could have imagined. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'll stay." Marcus's smile widened. "Welcome home, Jesse Hollister." That evening, Jesse walked the perimeter of the ranch alone. He needed time to think, time to process everything that had changed. His ranch, his land, his future. The words still felt foreign, unreal, like they belonged to someone else. He stopped at the eastern fence, looking out at the mountains, silhouetted against the darkening sky. His father had chosen this place, had seen something in this wild, beautiful land worth protecting. "I wish you could see it, Pa," Jesse whispered to the wind. "I wish you could know that it worked, that I made it." The wind answered with silence, but somehow Jesse felt heard. He stayed there until the stars came out, then walked back toward the main house. Clara was waiting on the porch, a lantern beside her, her face warm with welcome. "Find what you were looking for?" she asked. "I think so." Jesse sat beside her, taking her hand. "I was looking for peace, for permission to stop running." "And did you find it?" "Yeah." He smiled, and for the first time in 7 years, it reached his eyes. "I think I finally did." They sat together as the night deepened around them. The ranch was quiet now, peaceful in a way that no longer felt like the calm before a storm. This was real peace, earned peace. "Clara," Jesse said quietly. "Yes. Will you marry me?" She turned to look at him, her eyes wide. "What?" "I know it's sudden. I know we haven't known each other long. But I've spent 7 years learning that tomorrow isn't promised." He took both her hands in his. "I don't want to waste another day. I want to build a life with you, a family, a future." "Jesse, you don't have to answer now. I can wait. I just needed you to know. Yes. He blinked. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Clara's smile was radiant, tears streaming down her face. Yes to everything. Yes to all of it. Jesse pulled her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. You mean it. I've never meant anything more. Clara pulled back to look at him. I love you, Jesse Hollister. I've loved you since you collapsed on my doorstep and thanked me for saving your life. I'll spend the rest of my days making sure you don't regret it. I know you will. They kissed under the Montana stars, two broken people who'd found healing in each other. Two lonely hearts who'd finally found home. And somewhere, Jesse could almost feel his father smiling. The news of their engagement spread through the ranch like wildfire. By morning, every hand knew. By noon, Sarah McCraw had already started planning the wedding. By evening, the cookhouse was filled with celebration, laughter, and music, and the kind of joy that had been absent from Broken Arrow for too long. To Jesse and Clara, Pete raised his tin cup of whiskey. May your marriage be as strong as Montana winters and as warm as Miss Clara's biscuits. The hands cheered. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks, but she was smiling, really smiling in a way she hadn't in 4 years. Jesse's arm tightened around her waist. You all right? Better than all right? She leaned into him. I'm happy, Jesse. Genuinely, completely happy. That makes two of us. Billy pushed through the crowd, his young face flushed with excitement. Does this mean you're staying for good, Jesse? You're really not leaving. I'm really not leaving. Jesse ruffled the boy's hair. Looks like you're stuck with me. Good. Billy's grin was enormous. Someone's got to teach me the rest of those rope tricks. The celebration continued late into the night. Jesse watched his friends, his family. He corrected himself. Laugh and joke and toast to his future. These people had risked their lives for him, had stood with him against impossible odds. He still couldn't quite believe it was real. You're doing that thing again, Clara said quietly. What thing? The thing where you look around like you're expecting it all to disappear. Jesse shook his head. Old habits. They'll fade. Clara took his hand. Give it time. How much time? As much as you need. She squeezed his fingers. I'm not going anywhere. The weeks that followed were filled with preparations not just for the wedding, but for the future they were building together. Jesse threw himself into learning the business side of ranching. Marcus was a patient teacher, walking him through accounts, contracts, breeding records, all the details that kept a ranch running. Your father would be proud, Marcus said one afternoon, watching Jesse review the spring cattle projections. You've got his head for numbers. I've got his stubbornness, according to my mother. That too, Marcus smiled. But Jesse, that's not a bad thing. Stubbornness is what kept you alive. What brought you here? I suppose. No supposing about it. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You know what I see when I look at you. I see a man who refused to give up, who held on to hope when there was every reason to let go. His weathered face softened. Your father saw the same thing. That's why he trusted you with this place. Jesse was quiet for a moment. I miss him, every day. That won't change. Grief doesn't disappear, it just becomes part of you. Marcus's voice held the weight of his own losses. But Jesse, missing the dead doesn't mean you can't live for the living. Clara said something similar. She's a smart woman. You're lucky to have her. I know. Jesse looked out the window toward the cookhouse where Clara was preparing dinner. I know. Clara had her own preparations to make. 3 weeks after the engagement, she approached Jesse with a request that surprised them both. I want to start a school. Jesse looked up from the ledger he'd been studying. A school. For the ranch children. Billy, the younger hands who never learned their letters. Clara's eyes were bright with an enthusiasm he hadn't seen before. I was a teacher, Jesse. Before everything. It was my dream. I remember. I thought that dream died with my family. But lately, she sat across from him. I've been thinking about Benjamin, about what he would have wanted for me. What do you think he'd want? Clara's voice trembled but held steady. He'd want me to be happy, to use my gifts, to help children the way I was supposed to help him. Jessie reached across the table and took her hands. Then do it. Start your school. You mean it. Clara, you've given me back my life. You've given me hope, a home, a future. He smiled. Let me give you something in return. But the cost? This ranch belongs to both of us now, and there's nothing I'd rather spend money on than seeing you smile like that. She was crying now, but they were good tears, the kind that washed away old pain and made room for new joy. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll be happy. Really, truly happy. Jessie lifted her hands to his lips. That's all I've ever wanted for you. I promise. Clara leaned forward and kissed him. I promise, Jessie. The wedding was set for the first week of May, when the winter had finally loosened its grip and the first wildflowers were beginning to bloom. Clara's dress was simple cream-colored cotton with lace at the collar borrowed from Sarah McCraw's own wedding 30 years before. She'd worried it was too plain, but Sarah had waved away her concerns. Honey, it's not the dress that makes the bride. It's the love in her heart. Sarah adjusted the lace at Clara's throat. And Lord knows you've got plenty of that. I'm nervous. Course you are. That's natural. Sarah stepped back to admire her work. But Clara, look at yourself. Really look. Clara turned to the small mirror on the wall. The woman who looked back at her was a stranger. No, not a stranger. A woman she'd forgotten existed. A woman with hope in her eyes and color in her cheeks. I look alive. Sarah smiled. You look alive again, honey, and that's the most beautiful thing in the world. The ceremony was held in the ranch yard under a canopy of spring sky. Every hand was present, cleaned up and uncomfortable in their Sunday best. Marcus stood at the front ready to give Clara away. Doc Whitfield had made the journey from Billings to serve as witness. And Jesse waited at the makeshift altar, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break free of his chest. When Clara appeared in the doorway of the main house, the world stopped. She walked toward him slowly, Marcus at her side, her eyes never leaving his. Jesse felt tears prick his eyes, tears he didn't bother to hide. You're beautiful, he whispered when she reached him. So are you. The preacher cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. The words washed over Jesse like a dream. He heard himself speaking, heard Clara's voice responding, but it all felt distant, unreal. The only thing that felt solid was her hand in his. Do you, Jesse Hollister, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Clara Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The preacher smiled. You may kiss the bride. Jesse cupped Clara's face in his hands and kissed her, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude and hope into that single moment. The ranch hands erupted in cheers. Someone fired a pistol into the air. Music started, Pete on the fiddle, Tom on the harmonica, and suddenly they were surrounded by celebration. Mrs. Hollister, Jesse said, testing the words. Mr. Hollister, Clara replied, her smile radiant. I like the sound of that. So do I. The celebration lasted well into the night. There was dancing and drinking and more laughter than Broken Arrow had heard in years. Billy got into the whiskey and had to be carried to bed by two older hands. Even Marcus, usually so dignified, was seen doing a jig with Sarah McCraw. When the stars were high and the fires burning low, Jesse took Clara's hand and led her away from the crowd. Where are we going? I want to show you something. They walked to the eastern fence where Jesse had stood so many times before, looking out at the mountains. But tonight, he wasn't thinking about the past. He was thinking about the future. "This is my favorite spot on the ranch," he said. "When I first came here, I used to stand here and wonder if I'd ever feel safe again. And now I stand here and think about everything we're going to build." He turned to face her. "A home, a family, a life." Clara stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his waist. "A family. If you want one, I do." Her voice was soft, vulnerable. "I thought I'd never be ready to be a mother again, but Jesse, with you, I think I could be." "Then we'll have one, someday, when the time is right." When the time is right. They stood there wrapped in each other as the moon rose over the mountains. Two people who'd lost everything and found each other in the wreckage. Jesse. "Yeah, I'm glad you collapsed on my doorstep." He laughed, the sound warm and free. "So am I." Summer came to Broken Arrow Ranch in a blaze of green and gold. Clara's school opened in June in a corner of the cookhouse that had been converted into a makeshift classroom. She started with 5 students, Billy, 2 younger hands who'd never learned to read, and 2 children from neighboring ranches, whose parents had heard about the new teacher at Broken Arrow. The cat sat on the mat. Billy read slowly, his finger tracing each word. "The cat sat on the mat." "Perfect," Clara beamed at him. "You're improving so quickly, Billy." "Really?" The boy's face lit up. "You think so?" "I know so. Another few months and you'll be reading novels." Jesse watched from the doorway, his heart full. This was Clara, as she was meant to be, passionate, engaged, alive, with purpose. Teaching had reignited something in her that had been dormant for years. "You're staring again," she said without looking up. "Can't help it. You're beautiful when you're happy." "I'm always happy when I'm teaching." She finally turned to look at him. "And when I'm with you." "Then I'll make sure you have plenty of both." The ranch thrived under Jesse's leadership. With Marcus's guidance and his own natural instincts, he made decisions that improved. The herd expanded the grazing land and built relationships with neighboring ranches. The hands respected him not because of his father's name or the deed in his pocket, but because he worked alongside them. Because he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Because he treated every man as an equal. "You're a good boss," Tom told him one evening. "Better than most I've worked for." "I had good teachers." "Maybe. But good teaching don't mean nothing without good character." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "You've got both, Hollister. Don't ever forget it." Autumn brought change and a piece of news that transformed everything. Clara had been feeling unwell for weeks. Tired, nauseated, unable to eat breakfast without rushing to the basin. "You should see the doctor," Jessie said, watching her push away her plate for the 3rd morning in a row. "I'm fine. It's probably just Clara." She looked up at his worried face and sighed. "All right. I'll ride into town tomorrow." But she didn't need to ride anywhere. Sarah McCraw took one look at her that afternoon and started laughing. "What?" Clara demanded. "What's so funny?" "Honey, you're not sick." Sarah's eyes were twinkling. "You're pregnant." The word hit Clara like a thunderbolt. That's impossible." "Is it?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You're married to a healthy young man. You've been sharing his bed for months. What's impossible about it?" Clara sank into a chair. "I never thought. After Benjamin, I never thought I'd..." "Life has a way of surprising us." Sarah knelt beside her. "How do you feel about it?" Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly a smile spread across her face. "Terrified," she admitted. "And happy. So incredibly happy." "Good." Sarah hugged her tight. "Now go tell that husband of yours before he wears a hole in the floorboards worrying about you." Jesse's reaction was everything Clara could have hoped for. She found him in the barn, checking on a mare that was due to foal soon. He looked up as she entered, his face immediately creasing with concern. "Clara, what's wrong? What did Sarah say?" "Nothing's wrong." Clara crossed to him, taking his hands. "Jesse, I'm pregnant." He went absolutely still. "Pregnant," he repeated. "We're going to have a baby." For a moment, Jesse didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his face crumpled, and he pulled her into his arms so tight she could barely breathe. "A baby," he whispered against her hair. "Our baby. Our baby." He pulled back, his eyes wet. "Are you all right? Is everything... Are you healthy?" "I'm fine. Sarah says I'm strong and healthy, and the baby should come in early spring." Early spring. Jesse laughed, the sound wild and joyful. "Clara, we're going to be parents." "I know. I'm going to be a father." "I know." He kissed her, then pulled back, then kissed her again. "I have to tell Marcus, and Tom, and Billy. God, Billy's gonna lose his mind." "Jesse. And we need to start preparing. The baby will need a room. We'll need supplies. I should write to the doctor and Helena, make sure we have..." "Jesse." Clara caught his face in her hands. "Breathe." He stopped, took a breath, then started laughing. "Sorry, I never thought I'd have this. Any of this." His voice cracked. "A wife, a home, a baby. Now you have all three. Now I have everything." Winter returned to Montana, but this time it brought no fear. Broken Arrow Ranch was warm and secure, well stocked for the cold months ahead. The hands were prepared, the cattle healthy, the fences strong. And in the main house, Jesse and Clara waited for spring. Clara's belly grew round and full. She stopped teaching when the winter set in, but planned to resume in the spring with help from Sarah. The students were eager to continue. Billy especially had developed a love of reading that surprised everyone, himself most of all. "You're going to be a great mother," Jesse told her one evening. They were sitting by the fire, Clara's feet in his lap, his hands rubbing the ache from her swollen ankles. "You think so?" "I know so. Look at how you are with Billy, with all the hands. You've got a gift, Clara." "What about you?" She watched his face. "Are you ready to be a father?" Jesse was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about that a lot, about what kind of father I want to be. And my father was a good man, strong, protective. He would have done anything for his family." Jesse's voice softened. "But he wasn't always present, always working, always planning. I don't think he realized how much time he was missing until it was too late. You don't want to make the same mistake." "No, I want to be there, really there." He looked at her, his gray eyes intense. "I want our child to know they're loved, to feel safe, to never wonder if their father cares about them." Clara reached out and touched his face. "They'll know, Jesse. They'll know because you'll show them every day." "I hope so." "I don't hope. I know." She smiled. "You're the best man I've ever met, and you're going to be the best father this baby could ask for." The baby came on a March morning when the snow was just beginning to melt and the first hints of spring were creeping across the land. Clara's labor was long but uncomplicated. Doc Whitfield had ridden out from Billings a week earlier, wanting to be present for the birth. Sarah McCraw served as midwife, her steady hands and calm voice guiding Clara through the hardest hours. Jesse waited outside the bedroom door, pacing until he'd worn a path in the floorboards. The hands took turns sitting with him, offering encouragement, bringing coffee he couldn't drink. "First babies always take the longest," Tom said. "My wife was in labor 14 hours with our firstborn." That doesn't help Tom. Wasn't trying to help, just stating facts. When Clara's final scream gave way to the thin, strong cry of a newborn, Jesse's heart stopped. The door opened. Sarah stood there, her face wreathed in smiles. "It's a girl, Jesse, a beautiful, healthy girl." He pushed past her, barely aware of his own movement. Clara lay in the bed exhausted but radiant, a small bundle cradled in her arms. "Jesse." Her voice was weak but full of joy. "Come meet your daughter." He crossed to the bed on shaking legs and looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the blanket. Dark hair like his, blue eyes that would probably change, but for now looked just like Clara's. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She is." Clara shifted the baby. "Do you want to hold her?" Jesse sat on the edge of the bed and took his daughter into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. So small, so fragile, so completely dependent on him. "Hello," he said softly. "I'm your daddy, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life keeping you safe." The baby made a small sound and nestled deeper into his chest. "She likes you," Clara said. "I like her too." Jesse looked at his wife, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Clara. Thank you for this, for everything. Thank you for not giving up, for finding your way here." Clara reached out and touched his face. "For giving me a reason to live again." They sat there, the three of them, as the morning sun streamed through the window. Outside, they could hear the hands celebrating news of the birth had spread quickly, and someone had broken out a bottle of whiskey to toast the new arrival. "We need to name her," Clara said. "I've been thinking about that." Jesse looked down at his daughter's face. "What about Elizabeth, after my mother?" Clara smiled. "Elizabeth Hollister. I like it." "Elizabeth Clara Hollister," Jesse amended. "After both the most important women in my life." "Jesse, it's perfect." He leaned over and kissed her. "Just like you. Just like her. Just like this life we've built." Spring unfolded across Broken Arrow Ranch in a riot of color and new life. The cattle grew fat on fresh grass. The foals were born healthy and strong. Clara's school reopened, and Elizabeth attended every class, gurgling happily from her basket while her mother taught. Jesse watched it all with a sense of wonder that never quite faded. "You're still doing that thing," Clara teased him one evening. They were sitting on the porch, Elizabeth asleep in Jesse's arms, watching the sunset paint the sky. "What thing?" "Looking around like you can't believe it's real." "That's because I can't." Jesse shook his head. "A year ago, I was running for my life, alone, terrified, convinced I'd never know peace. And now? Now I have you, Elizabeth, the ranch, friends, family." He pulled her closer. "Everything I thought I'd lost forever." Clara rested her head on his shoulder. "It wasn't lost, just waiting for you to find it." "I didn't find it. You found me, bleeding on your doorstep with nothing to offer except trouble." "You offered more than you knew." Clara looked up at him. "You offered hope, Jesse. You reminded me that life could be different, that love was still possible. We saved each other." "Yes," she smiled. "We did." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged one by one. Elizabeth stirred in Jesse's arms, made a small sound, then settled again. "What do you think she'll be when she grows up?" Clara asked. "Whatever she wants. A rancher, a teacher, a doctor." Jesse stroked his daughter's dark hair. "She's going to have choices, Clara. Opportunities. Everything we almost lost. She's going to know she's loved. Every single day." Marcus joined them on the porch, lowering himself into a chair with the careful movements of an aging man. He looked at the young family before him and smiled. "Harrison would be proud," he said quietly. Jesse looked up. "You think so?" "I know so. He wanted this for you. A home. A family. A life worth living." Marcus's weathered face softened. "You've honored his memory, son. More than you'll ever know." "I had help." Jesse reached out and gripped the old man's hand. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Thank me by being happy, by raising that little girl right, by living the life your father wanted for you." "I will. I promise." The summer passed in a haze of golden days and peaceful nights. The ranch prospered. Elizabeth grew crawling, then standing, then taking her first wobbly steps across the cookhouse floor. And Jesse Hollister, who had once been a frightened boy running from a crime he didn't commit, became the man his father always knew he could be. He worked the land with his own hands. He treated his people with respect and kindness. He loved his wife with a devotion that never wavered. And he held his daughter every night before bed, whispering promises of protection and love. The ghosts of his past didn't disappear. They never would entirely. But they faded, becoming memories rather than wounds, chapters in a story that had found its proper ending. On the first anniversary of their wedding, Jesse took Clara back to the eastern fence, their spot, and they stood together watching the sunset. "Do you remember what you told me when I first arrived?" Jesse asked. "I told you to stop bleeding on my floor." He laughed. "After that?" "I told you that everyone needs help sometimes." Clara leaned into him. "That even the strongest people need someone in their corner." "You were right." Jesse wrapped his arm around her. "I spent 7 years trying to survive alone, thinking that was the only way. But you showed me different. I didn't show you anything you didn't already know. You reminded me then." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "You reminded me that life is worth living, that love is worth risking, that home isn't a place, it's a person." Clara turned to face him, her eyes bright with tears. "Jesse." "You're my home, Clara. You and Elizabeth. This ranch, these people, they matter. But you—" His voice cracked. "You're everything." She pulled him close, holding him tight as the sun sank below the mountains. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. Always have. Always will." They stood there until the stars came out, two people who had found each other in the darkness and walked together into the light. Behind them, the ranch settled into evening quiet. In the main house, Elizabeth was sleeping peacefully, watched over by Sarah McCraw. The hands were in the bunkhouse playing cards and telling stories. Marcus sat on the porch smoking his pipe, content in the knowledge that everything he'd built would be in good hands. And at the eastern fence, Jesse and Clara Hollister held each other and watched the stars emerge. They had survived loss. They had survived grief. They had survived 7 years of running and 4 years of hiding, and the kind of pain that breaks most people. But they had also found each other, found love, found home, and in the end, that was all that mattered. The Montana wind carried their voices into the night, laughter and whispered promises and the quiet sounds of a love that had been tested by fire and proven true. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new chapters in a story that was only beginning. But tonight, there was peace. Tonight, there was home. Tonight, two broken people stood together under the stars and knew finally, completely without doubt, that they had found exactly where they belonged. And that was more than enough. It was everything.